It is 11 o'clock on April 9th. We're bringing the SETD Board Policy Committee meeting to order, and we will stand, those who can, for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, roll call please, Sarah.
Chair Montero.
Present.
Commissioner Stolberg.
Here.
Commissioner York.
Here. Okay, good deal. Any changes to the agenda? Yes.
Could we add an item at the end of other comments by committee members?
Oh, okay. So add an item.
Just before adjournment?
Right. So make adjournment item 9 and add item 8, other comments. Or why, instead of other comments, why don't we just make it board member, or excuse me, committee member comments? Is that what you're, yeah, okay. And let's make that a regular.
Okay.
Okay, and then I was just looking at this again, and I'm thinking I'd like to move 7A, the policy manual table of contents, to the end of 7. I'm kind of looking at doing them in the order, so so we just move it. It becomes item F, and everything moves up a position. I don't want us to get sidetracked on some other things that I think we can complete today. Does that sound okay to everybody? Okay. Do we have any public here for public comment? I don't think we do. Okay, good deal. So, approval of the minutes. Any comments, any additions, changes regarding the minutes?
No changes.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the minutes are approved. Minutes of the April 12th meeting. Okay, so next item is to review the edits to policy B312, which is on page 21. And let's, hopefully this is going to be our final to get recommended or have very minor changes. So let's see. And thank you for highlighting stuff. Really appreciate that. So let's just go through on it. I really like now how we are doing the header for policies. Do we think that that can be what we adopt for the future for everything? So
I think it's fantastic.
Okay, so we have the original, and then we have any updates, and they keep coming down the line. Okay. All right. So I think I'm just going to read this through, and we'll see if there's anything we need to look at.
Or you could just ask if for general committee information.
Okay. So
is there anything there?
So policy B3112, if that's the current number, is that the purpose is to outline and provide guidance to the board regarding committee structure. I think that, you know. So we have the general committee information. Is that making sense to everybody? That if lay members would submit applications, and we have an application attached, the executive director would recommend the staffing for each committee, and that would be approved by the Board of Commissioners. And the order of business at the beginning of formation for each committee would be an election of chair, vice chair, and setting dates and meeting dates and times. You know what, I'm just looking in here. Would an order of business also be for that, if there isn't a mission statement for that committee, that the mission statement be reviewed or revised as needed? Does that need to be at the beginning order of business to make sure that every committee has a mission statement?
I think review or draft.
Okay. So let's put a number 4, review or draft mission statement.
I have a question about that. Isn't that established in the committee's bylaws?
But the committee may not have bylaws.
Right.
And not all committees necessarily need bylaws. But let's say it's a new committee being formed. That has to, that would have to be designed or drafted by the committee and ultimately go back to the Board of Commissioners for final approval.
I would say that normally there shouldn't be a set of bylaws for a committee. They're operating under the bylaws of the organization. And the only exception I know is TAC, and those, that's work for them.
Right.
That might be good work because that's an ongoing important committee.
And I think it's required.
Then it's even better. And that still has to go to the board for approval. But the mission or purpose, every committee should have it. It would be good practice for the board to have it as they're forming a committee.
Right.
But if they haven't, or they've, it's in the minutes but it's not clear, then it makes sense to me that that would be the first work of the group, is saying, is this enough? Do we need to change it? But it still has to be approved by the board.
Yeah, so I think it fits as a 4th item.
Right.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify the process.
Yeah. And it could be that when the board says we want this committee, they say, and the purpose of the committee is blah, blah, blah. It still comes back to the committee to say, okay, is that all inclusive of what we understand our purpose to be, etc.
It would be nice to have the consensus.
Right.
Yeah, right
So-
from the beginning. Okay.
And bylaws, what I see that each committee would have is, I'm going to call them the operational rules or operational guidelines. These are the meeting dates. These are the, we elect a new chair once a year or something like that. Okay. And then each committee shall report on activities on a regular basis or as designated, and the committee meeting minutes shall be included in the monthly board meeting packet. I don't want to forget this in the future, so maybe it's overbearing here, but I really like having our mission statement on our agenda, on anything that I'm going to say publish. So when we finally have a policy book, we're going to have our mission statement. Because I don't want that to be forgotten, and I would like for that to be, make sure that that's a norm. I'm wondering if it's an item F, that it's general committee information, that the mission of the committee, the mission statement of the committee is posted on every agenda, at least on its agenda. What do you guys think? It feels a little like overkill, but on the other hand,
I think it's a good practice, but I wouldn't have a problem at all with committees deciding that on their own. This is a draft that's going to the board, so if we put it there as part of the draft and the board can say, yeah, no, And
Okay.
The group's preference is let them figure that out themselves. That would be fine with me.
Right.
But if you want that prompt, so that it'll get,
Yeah,
they'll
and-
think about it, that's okay with me.
because
as
I
well.
also think it's important for the public who sees the agenda online to know, okay, this is the purpose of this committee, which is different than the purpose of that committee.
I like the idea, but wouldn't that be more of a staffing operational policy that the staff would generate?
Remember, these are board committees,
Okay,
and we're making, the board gets to make the rules for its committees.
because functionally, I think that really helps, because when we've had that on some of the documents that have come out, it helps remind you, okay, this is the mindset you're in for this task.
Yes.
And we're all, really basically 5 of us junior members. So I do like that, I support that, I just don't know how to word that right now and put that in there. But I think you can, the two of you can figure that out.
So one of the issues for me is that I lean towards policies that don't have a lot of detail in them, that they're policies rather than procedures. However,
Yeah.
the board, the first chunk of policies, board policies, it is our place to put more detail in it. When they're operational policies, finance policies, I would like to see more philosophical, the basis of a particular policy, and that it's staff developing their procedures and the detail is there. So I just want to say that as a general principle for me.
Right.
But that in the first chunk, board policies, I think, it is for us. The issue is not so much about what is the board's role and what is the staff's role, as it is an operational, things that are related to internal operations. It's more about the difference between the role of the board as the board sees it and the role of the committee members.
Right, because what we're doing is talking about, this is the way the board acts. This is the way the board agrees to act, that kind of thing. So you have staff support, but we're not saying the staff is acting this way, we're saying the board will act this way. So, and the foundational ones are where you have maybe a few more of those details.
Because of that.
Right, right. And this is really a foundational policy. Okay, then the appointment of committees. So the board may appoint committees to advise the board regarding district. So we're giving ourselves permission to appoint committees.
Is it appoint or
Appoint committee member to
create?
create, you're right. Create.
What number are we on?
We're on, at the top of page 23, excuse me, number A.
So instead of appoint, you say create?
Yeah, you appoint members to a committee you've created.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
because we've already talked about how people get appointed
right.
under the general committee.
So the heading shouldn't be appointment of committees.
It should be, it should be,
Or formation?
you know what? Actually, if you think about general committee information, wouldn't this A, that the BOC may create committees, wouldn't that be the very first statement in general committee information?
Yeah, I think that it's kind of redundant in this.
Yes.
That makes sense.
It probably just needs to be, like you said, at the top of
Right.
number 1.
So 1A should be the BOC. And number 2, and 1B should be required to have the budget committee. That should be 1A, that should be 1B. And then, where we have A on this page, that should be C, D, E, F, G, H. So it's renumbered, and you get rid of that 2 that's appointment of committees.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah. You have to process it through kind of logically. And then number 3 becomes number 2, standing committees of the Board of Commissioners. So the following are standing committees, and all right, so we've got mission statement there, which assumes that we are going to put that mission statement in there. How do we want to handle that? The mission statement isn't going to be sitting there just yet. And maybe the mission statement doesn't need to be in the policy, because we've already said over here that you have to have a mission statement.
I think that's a better approach. I think that's a level of detail complication here.
Yeah.
Because the committee, you know, the second year of the committee, they may say, we think we want to tweak this a little bit. We don't want to go back and change the policy.
You're right. So let's take out every one of those lines that says mission statement.
Good work, Sarah, but thanks.
Yeah, no, it
anyway.
is, absolutely. Okay.
So at the top of each of 3A, B, C, D, and on, where it's highlighted mission statement to come.
That's going to come out. That sentence will come out.
Okay.
Because we're not, it's like you don't put things in your bylaws that are going to change frequently.
Right.
This is, yeah, because just like Sarah, like Penny said, if the committee itself says, oh, we need to update that, then they have to come all the way back to this and
Unnecessary work.
yeah.
Right.
Okay.
I have a general question.
So yes.
What reading comprehension level are we aiming for on our policies? Do we have a target?
Well, I don't know, 6th to 8th grade?
I was going to say, it's not college, it's not grad school.
No.
It's not elementary school, but middle school, high school, in there someplace.
Because we went through a thing where hospital policies have to be written to a 5th grade level, so people have to comprehend them. So I just wondered if we were kind of aiming at keeping the language simple enough that the general public wouldn't have a problem reading it and knowing what it says.
Generally, the only people who are going to be interested in these are people who are involved some way in the organization. I don't think that if somebody in the general public, a writer, has a question about it, staff should be able to help them through what that means.
Okay.
Yeah. We might, though, in one of the policies, say that we will attempt to maintain policy language at a grade level. Yeah. Because again, that's a policy of the board.
Because it is part of the public record.
Right. Okay, so each one of these statements then describes the committee in an overview fashion. So, so each one of them should start off with how many members, what are the terms, and while I like the paragraph, I have to tell you it would be easier for me to read if this was bullets that I said number of members, 14. 14 board members equal lay members, or whatever. Term and meet and
So basically each point, each sentence
Yeah.
could be a bullet.
and it would be, I think, a little bit shorter. So what do you two think of that? It draws the eye if I'm just looking for term. I don't have to read the whole a paragraph. So if we have a bullet called term, and a bullet called composition.
I like that idea because when I looked at some of the work that the SDAO put out, it was formatted kind of that way, that it was all very simple, short points and kind of in a bulleted format. So that would make sense to me.
Right. So what if you did composition first, term second, and frequency third? So for budget committee, composition would be all members of the board plus an equal number of lay members. Term would be 3-year term for lay members. And frequency would be
The annual basis.
yeah, annual basis. And I would even, now, see, you're getting the purpose in here, to review and make recommendations to the board. Do we need to put that purpose in there?
I would say it just doesn't matter to me. The
Okay.
detail, the formatting of those paragraphs doesn't.
Okay, so go ahead and leave it with annual basis to review and make recommendations. Yeah.
Is there a separate budget committee policy?
There probably will be, yeah.
So that last line could just be short and simple, committee convenes on an
Yeah.
annual basis.
So I'm going to add something general. Like I said, I can see it different ways. None of them rise to me caring one way or another, to be honest. However, I was going to say this at the end, but I'm going to say this now. I think we need to be cautious about how much time we're spending on all this. It takes time for staff to do something, draft it, do it again. It's perfect is the enemy of good. We have missed a piece by not bringing in David or appropriate staff member at an earlier stage, so that we're not, it doesn't matter from the board things, but operational things we need to know sooner rather than later if there's an operational reason not to do something. We're not spending time talking about it, and then the board spending time talking about it, and then David last will say, yeah, but we can't do that because of this. If we try to get everyone perfect, it's gonna take more time. So I am not going to be a big fan of spending a lot of time talking about minor, my opinion, minor formatting issues.
Okay. And so
That doesn't mean you can't do it,
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
two of you feel differently, that's
Yeah.
just fine. So I just spent some time doing that, and I'm try not to do that anymore.
okay, all right. And
So-
go ahead.
But to respond to that, then, we're just talking about a formatting change here, basically.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we don't need to go through every one, and do we need to go through every one and decide what the language is specifically, or can we just have it just drafted in a new format with bullet points? And see if that's enough to get by on for now.
Okay, so we either say, hey, do it this way, and Sarah does all, and then we bring it back and to review it, and we go through that again, or we do it right now and do it once.
Well, it won't necessarily be once, because
Well,
the board may
hopefully.
do it as well.
Well, the board may. So I can tell you historically, it does not appear to me that the SETD board in general has paid a lot of good attention to the details of its policies. And that has created its own set of whatever difficulties I'll call them. And I think we have some policies that are really basic and are the infrastructure kind of policies. And then I think we have other policies that we say they might be informational, they might be aspirational, but this one for me this is how we work. And so and I agree with you, perfect is the enemy of good. And I sometimes go over there. But this one I want to get honed. So, and also I want to make it easy, not just for board members to read policies and understand them. I also look at, these policies are going to outlast us here. And they're also, if we are looking at transparency, we want people to be able to read them and understand what we mean. So.
Can we ask the staff what would be most expedient for them?
In terms of?
Reformatting this. Well, my question is, are we creating more work for the staff person than we need to on doing this? I want to see the format change, right? But I don't know what the quickest way to get that done is.
Like we're doing right now. I mean, if we set up a general term, composition, term, frequency, and we just fill in the blanks.
Okay, all right, I can follow that.
So the Transportation Advisory Committee, actually all you have to do there is composition is a 5-member lay committee with 1 board member. Actually, it's 1 board member and it's a total of 5 lay and 1 board, yes. And the term, 3 years. And we don't have to say which are staggered. You always start off with staggered terms, but you don't always end up with staggered terms. So 3-year terms. And frequency is, the state law says the frequency has to be twice a year. So, and this committee, we can refer to the state law and say, fulfills the requirements, or, in the description, it's the ORS, whatever.
Okay, one question.
Yeah.
And we're probably not mentioning it anymore, so it wouldn't matter, but for my clarity, is where it says the district special transportation fund grant, is that the STIF funds?
It doesn't matter because it's not going to be in here.
I know, but is that what we were talking about?
Yeah, that's why you have an advisory committee. The state,
Okay.
the ORS requires an advisory committee for STIF funds. Yeah. On this one, I would, do we need to say it's governed by its own bylaws?
Yeah.
I think as long as we refer to it is per ORS, blah, blah.
Right, that's clarified in the ORS.
Yes, and that gives us all the other details. Okay. Board Policy Committee, you've got a composition of 3 board members. Term is 1 year, and frequency as needed. Do we want to put a minimum frequency to this committee? I don't
think so.
Maybe there needs to be at least one annual meeting of the committee to do a total review.
That makes sense.
Okay, minimum once annually.
I'm sorry, what was the term?
Term is 1 year.
Okay.
Executive Director Evaluation Committee, that's 3 board members. The term is probably 1 year, yes. And yeah, again, we don't have to have that the board chair appoints them with the concurrence because that's already somewhere else.
And I don't think we need the HR manager there because the appointment and the staffing is handled in another
Right,
place.
right. And then, and it's a minimum of once a year. Finance Committee. So composition, BOC treasurer, BOC member, 1 lay member. And okay, I think under, is there going to be a policy on Finance Committee? There will be a separate policy, wouldn't there? Where we say the lay member shall be part of the budget committee? Or should we
I don't
put
know,
it
we're
here?
not having separate policies for the other ones. Seems like they
Okay.
would have the same basic stuff that the others would, so
Okay.
they're parallel.
So the lay member, you just say 1 lay member who is also a budget committee member or has financial expertise.
If we want to spell out special skills or things, then it needs to be here in all
Yeah,
of them.
I agree. And then the term is 1 year. Now, here's the deal. Down here, ad hoc committees may establish as many ad hoc committees as it deems necessary. We've already got a sentence, 1A, that says may create committees to advise the board regarding district business.
You could just clarify they could be ad hoc
I
or
don't
standing
think,
committees.
what do you think? Do we need to repeat that? Because that really is redundant.
I don't think we do.
I'm reading those 2 sentences to see, the words are different, but do they say anything different?
The BOC may create committees to advise the board regarding the district business. That's an overarching sentence. Then we talk about standing committees, and then we have this, the BOC, and you know, let's be standard. Once we say Board of Commissioners, then every place else just call it the BOC.
Okay.
Okay? So BOC may establish as many ad hoc committees as it deems necessary to fulfill the needs of the district.
So the difference to me between those 2 sentences is the use of the term ad hoc in the second one, which implies short-term, long-term.
So how about this? How about 1A says, instead of the BOC may create committees, it says the BOC creates committees. So it actually gives the BOC that responsibility to create committees. Then you talk about the standing committees, and then you have the ad hoc may establish as many ad hoc committees. It's a subtle difference.
Actually, I think it's fine the way it is, having those two. And I think the standing committee section.
Yes.
Yeah, is parallel to then the ad hoc committee section and the other district committees.
Right.
Those three things, there's more detail in one of them because there's more detail.
Right.
But they're parallel.
This first statement's inclusive, and the second just goes to
Sure.
specifics.
Okay, we'll leave it the way it is. Then, other district committees or work groups. The executive director has to create a committee to assist and advise with the operations of. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. And then here's the new generic committee application form. So,
Under preferred contact method, it says email.
It's a drop
It
down.
just dropped in there.
Well, yeah, so I made it a fillable form, so you can fill it out online if you want. And yeah, it gives you,
it's a drop down.
yeah, email,
Okay.
phone, I think text is maybe the other
So
one.
that's it.
It doesn't
That's
say
kind of-
what committee they're applying for.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm
good-
gonna
good point.
open a little bit of a door here. Do we want it to say committee application form, or do we had the kind of this discussion at the last board meeting, do we want it to say volunteer application form?
I think that for now, I mean, we acknowledged last time that there may be volunteers in other ways and that these folks are volunteers. If we say volunteer here,
Yeah.
it stretches it, and then we've got to start saying, okay, what's our volunteer program?
Because volunteer could be flopping over into the operations side of things.
Yeah, so that's
no,
something
I
to
agree
think
with
about
you.
separately.
I agree with
Yeah.
you.
Right.
Okay, so I think you got your name, address, city, state, phone, email, preferred. Right after that is which committee are you applying for?
And there should be a question about what is your, why are you interested in this committee, or something about what skills or knowledge, experience do you bring to this committee?
Now, okay, so does that fit into the briefly describe your background, experience, or perspective, or related to public transportation? This is more specific to this committee as it's.
So like in the budget commission, somebody
Right.
would, maybe they don't know anything about public transportation. We might want to know that, but we're probably more interested in, do you know anything about money?
Isn't that covered on the back of the page on the top? The first question?
No, that's using our services. That's not talking specifically about the work of the committee.
Oh, so, yeah,
And-
services.
And actually, I would rather have this question, please list if you've been a member of a group, volunteer, server. I'd like to have that be, I go from more specific to less specific. So which committee are you applying for? And then your question of why does,
Skills, experience.
what are your skills, experience, et cetera, that cause this committee to be of interest to you? And so I'm going to call question number 1, question number 2, and then I would make have you been a member of a group of similar? That would be question 3.
Yeah.
And then describe, I would make that question 4. Do we need all these questions for all the committees? What do you know about its funding? What do you think a public transportation system should provide?
No, but I don't think it hurts.
Okay.
As long as we're
5.
shifting so that we're starting with all the questions about committee,
7.
related to
Yes.
the committee, and then
And then-
they're more general about the
Yes.
district.
Yes. Okay. I can give this to you.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else that we want to know on an application? I actually think we need to have some office work here. Maybe a receive date. And so you have, with every application, you've got a record of receiving it, reviewing it, etc. Because at some point, I think we hold on to applications even if we don't appoint the person.
Or if they withdraw it.
Or they
we might
withdraw.
want to contact them again.
So
On the same line as the receipt date, can you mark a box that says how you received it, by mail, email, or personal delivery?
sure.
Because there's been some questions
Yeah.
about people.
Mhm.
But you can just have a box that's to be completed by office only. and
Right.
Use that
Right.
as you want
Received,
to.
reviewed, and how about outcome? Received, reviewed, and outcome.
Makes sense.
And the outcome could be appointed, withdrew.
Appointed to a different committee.
Yeah, exactly. And that would be open notes as opposed to, at some point, we'll get this so regular that we could create a drop down. But right now, I don't think we
Just
know everything that would
put in
need to
what
be in a
you-
drop down.
What seems needed
Okay.
at the time.
So, do we feel like with these changes, we are ready to recommend this to the board at their next meeting?
With one question, just
Sure.
to clarify, that does every committee have a mission statement? We talked about that, but I don't think we looked around and said, yeah, we want that in there so that kicking it up to the board to say whether or not they want it.
Well,
Adding.
actually, I think, because we're putting that on here, that's under the general committee information that each committee would review or draft a mission statement.
Well, we talked about it. I didn't
Right.
have a sense that we had made a decision.
Yeah,
So
I would add it because I like what you said, and that is, the board may look at it and say, no, that's not necessary.
yeah, I'm fine with that. I just wanted to
Yeah.
clarify that yeah. All right, now.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
I think that's a good salient point for each committee to begin that way.
Right. I like the way we actually stated this. The order of business at the beginning of formation of each committee and again at the beginning of each fiscal year
Mhm.
shall be election of chair, election of vice chair, set meeting dates and times, and review or draft mission statement.
I think that fulfills one of the corrective actions made by the previous audit and furnace review.
Okay.
That we needed to clarify what each element was doing and what they were responsible for. So I think that helps us a lot in that regard.
We'll take everything we can.
Okay, so I think what I need is a motion to recommend the policy current title B3112 for revision to the board with the revisions that we've made in it. That was a roundabout thing.
Let me see if I can cover that. I move that we submit through our revision of board policy B312 to the Board of Commissioners for approval.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, let's do roll call vote.
Commissioner Stolberg,
Aye.
Commissioner York,
Aye.
Chair Montero.
And I'm an aye, so that's unanimous. Yay! We have some work to produce to go. All right. And I will, so if you could put those revisions, just send them back out to us, but I think everything we've discussed, that's how we're presenting it, and I will let Kathy know. I left my phone in the car. So I will let Kathy know that we need to put this in our agenda.
Okay. I need 3 minutes.
Sure.
You can carry on if you want.
Okay. Do you want to take pictures of my notes, or do you want me to leave this with you?
Sure.
Either way, you could, whichever works best for you.
I can just take pictures, then you can take it with you if you want.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Okay. So,
You know what, I can also just make a quick photocopy, maybe that's the easiest.
okay, well, we're all done.
Okay.
How's that? That's good. That's good. Okay, so the next thing that we're looking at is forensic audit policy recommendations. Okay, so.
I think we should hold this until Matthew gets back.
Oh,
This is
okay.
a complex one.
Okay, so we were substantially done, I think, with 804A and 804B. Let's look at those at page 32. So we were going to take 804 and put it into two different policies. So 804A, the purpose is to assure separation of duties, restrictions on funds, proper tracking. This is the disbursement of funds policy. So what we're saying, who are the authorized signers on district bank accounts? And all checks shall be signed by 2 people. That's clear and concise. Then the second policy, 804B, is depositories. So one is the expending of funds and the other is the storage of funds, And the purpose is exactly the same. And the policy is the board shall designate the depositories, that means the bank accounts. Only qualified depositories shall be eligible. And then the Board of Commissioners authorizes the financial officer and the executive assistant to effect transferring funds between, because we didn't use the word accounts in number 1, do we need to use the word depositories?
Well, I'm going to suggest something that
You're going to suggest putting them together, aren't you?
I am.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
They have the
because I was
same
thinking,
purpose.
Yes,
They're already short. Consolidation when possible.
I agree.
Disbursement and depositories.
Could be the title.
Yeah, I would say maybe this, I'm saying it out loud for the first time, so maybe it's not good. Disbursement of funds and deposits. Those words in there someplace.
But it's not deposits.
Yeah.
It's depositories. So we need a definition of depositories, don't we?
Yeah.
Okay. So
what
I
do we get
agree
with
with
the title?
you. I agree with you.
But the purpose would stay the same, and then it would be disbursement of funds. And then the next category is depositories.
Yes.
And so the bullet points that are here under policy are under those two specific headings, with an addition of what the heck depository means.
So, and I would suggest this is again my need for linear, and that is, I think deposits come before expenses. So I'd like to do depositories first. So let's change this and we'll make it back to 804. We are combining 804A and 804B.
Okay.
And the title of it will be depositories and disbursement of funds. We've got the purpose. It's the same for both of them. Then we are going to have definition. And a definition is a depository is a financial institution where SETD stores funds is
rat holes. Get out my.
I have a note. On our material here, under 804B, it outlines the ORS 295.002. I think that's supposed to be 008. And 008 is the definitions that goes here. So if we just refer to that, it's quite lengthy.
Okay.
But wouldn't that cover exactly what we need to know?
How about depository is a financial institution as defined or as referenced in ORS 295.008.
Yes.
Perfect.
I think that covers us.
As referenced.
And makes it real easy, real short and easy.
I endorse short and easy.
Yes.
As long as it's and accurate.
Because it's very clear in the ORS. That's why I brought my thing here.
ORS 295.008. Okay, so we've got the definition.
Can I double check with Sarah if that's accurate? Is it?
I was just looking. 002 is deposit of public funds, and then 008
Should be definitions of financial institutions.
qualified depositories. A depository is qualified to
Right.
hold public funds if the depository.
Right.
So on and so on.
And that goes through what types and all the ins and outs of that.
So is the purpose of, are disbursements referenced in ORS 295? Probably not.
I think so.
She's looking.
I
She's
have to
looking.
look at it.
She's looking. Because we might end up in the purpose saying to assure another bullet, and that is that we are not consistent but compliant with ORS 295.
Overall,
Yeah.
the overarching one.
Yes.
And then I would go to definitions, yeah. 'Cause they've already done the work for us.
Compliance with ORS 295. Okay, so we add that under the purpose. That's another bullet. Then we have the definition. Do we have to add the definition then, if we're saying that the purpose is to assure compliance with ORS 295? Yeah, let's leave it.
Yeah, if somebody's just reading this piece of paper, they're not going to know.
Okay.
And it, just a simple definition and giving a reference, I think. helps
Okay,
somebody.
so policy, depository. And you take, and so you're going to have, you're going to do the depository policy first. And this one is the disbursement. So, under the policy depository, the board shall designate the depositories for the district, and we can use that sentence again. Only qualified are eligible, or we can say as per qualified by ORS 295.008. As eligible per.
I would say in accordance with.
Okay, in accordance with. With ORS 295.008. The Board of Commissioners authorizes the financial officer and the executive assistant to effect transferring funds between depositories.
I have one quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Aren't those proper nouns? Should they be capitalized?
Who, the financial officer and executive assistant? For me, it doesn't matter, one way or the other.
It doesn't matter, just
Okay,
autism brain. Sorry.
okay, that's all right.
I forget the rule for sure, but I think it's when used as a title, like.
Yes.
And this is executive assistant Sarah. That's part of,
Okay.
that's used like that,
Yeah.
rather than just talking about job titles.
You're talking about the position, not the title. So it
Right.
wouldn't
Yeah, I
necessarily
think you're
need to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Maybe.
so then the second policy is policy disbursement. The board officers, the executive director, and the chief operating officer shall be the authorized signers on district bank accounts. All checks shall be signed by 2 authorized signers, with at least 1 signer being a board officer.
So with that second one, that says that you could have 2 authorized signers, both being board officers, without a staff person.
You're right. Another reason to look at the details.
Doesn't sound like a good idea.
No, I agree. How about all checks shall be signed by 2 authorized signers,
One being.
one
And
being,
the other
other
being.
being. Yes, yes. One staff and 1 board officer. Now, because this already had a number to it, there should have been a board adoption date before us that needs to be filled in here, but we may not know what it is. But if you find it, you find it. If you don't, you can just put UNK.
Okay.
Under the bullet points, to assure, is it sufficient trained staff? That means enough staff members with training, or is it sufficiently trained staff?
It's a sufficient number of trained staff, I think. I think it's both, now that I think about it.
Yeah, I read it as both. So,
Sufficiently trained staff.
Okay.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure.
yeah. But I think.
you could say
yeah,
adequate number of sufficiently trained staff.
I like
Even
that.
better.
That,
Good.
I like that.
Good.
So this last bullet, adequate number And right now, there's 2 people. It's the executive director and the chief operating officer on the staff side, and there's 3 people on the board side. So that works on. Okay, we beat this little horse.
Yep.
I need a motion.
I move we forward this revised policy to the board with our recommendation of approval.
Could we, instead of this policy, could we say policy B804?
Yes, of course, we said that.
Yes, you said that. Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, any further? All those in, we'll do it. Roll call.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, good deal. All right, so now we're going to go back to the forensic audit policy recommendations, which starts, how late do we go?
It's on the agenda, it says 11 to 1.
11 to 1, so we have another hour. We're doing well.
Doesn't mean we have to fill every.
No, I agree.
It's good to, yeah.
Okay,
to have it.
so, summary. You were gonna do the AI to extract the policy recommendations, and that's what we're gonna discuss. So, we are on page 28.
28, thank you.
God, I love having you number these pages. This
Yes.
is wonderful. So, Sarah uploaded the ODOT audit and supporting documents, plus the 2 following RLS reports, and gave the chat, entered the prompt. Can you please review these documents and extract any policy recommendations? Okay, and there's the executive takeaway. So the core issue is consistent. Lack of board oversight, weak financial controls, and missing and insufficient policies. And you've read these in more detail than I have, so I'm really relying on whether or not you agree with whether AI is.
So I'd like to speak to that.
Yes, please.
What this reminded me of, I was so glad this was done, first of all. And it reminded me, reading basically those 3 documents, that it changed over those 3 documents. And this is a compilation of all. So there were, as I recall it, and it was confusing to read. I should have been taking better notes, but it started with lots and lots of things to do. Then they condensed that in the second one, recognizing that that was kind of too many things to do, and that related to the policies as well. And I think it wasn't completely consistent in when they said this needs to be a policy, like in bold, and you need policies on. And then the last was the staff response to that, and there was some change since then in that compared to what was originally. This is a reminder of all that, but it doesn't show that progression. And so I tried to fast forward in my mind to, so what would we do about that? It's not running AI again. David meets on a semi-regular basis, I'm not sure how frequently, with the representative of ODOT, who is the person responsible for overseeing our compliance with all that stuff. So I thought one approach would be, and David wrote the staff response, I believe, to that 3rd document. If David went over this and looked at his own compilation of what this might look like and would be possible for staff, and then to sit down with the rep from ODOT and say, what do you really want now? You know, we've made progress. This is Penny speaking right now. We probably don't need 20 somewhat redundant financial and operational policies. this is those that looked most important and compiled. What do you think? What do you want us to do? We would prefer not to do 20 or 30. And so before we spend much time, or staff spends much time working on actually doing these policies, well, we're at the stage of what policies do we need, which is the structural piece. Getting advice and consent from ODOT that, yeah, that works for us. So we don't do all this work and they say, oh, well, you did 3, and those aren't the ones that matter to us.
Okay, so I'm looking at it from a little different perspective. Everything you talked about appears to me to be operational. And I'm looking at what is the board's responsibility? What does the board need to make sure is being done? Or what are the board basics about? How should the board be informed? How should the board provide any, I'm going to say, oversight? What kind of reports does the board want to receive and how often? And I think those are what we need to put in the board policies. And David is going to be putting together operational policies that I think ultimately will have to come to the board for us to be able to say, yes, this fulfills our oversight responsibility. So for instance, it could be that our policy is that our policy could be that audits are performed in a timely manner. That's our requirement, or within that audits are started within X number of days of the close of a fiscal year. It could be that the staff or executive director must report quarterly to the board on what are the outstanding issues and what is the progress. And these are the kinds of things that weren't done in the past, I don't think. Because where I'm seeing this is what we have the fiduciary responsibility, we have the oversight responsibility. I don't need to know what David and Arla are saying, okay, this is what we want, ODOT wants. But at some point I need to know, okay, this is what the audit said, and this is how we're addressing it at the board, or this is how we know it's being addressed. So I'm looking at what are the board requirements.
So I think that's really important that there are 2 pieces for the, in that list of things that need to be done, and then there's the column that says who's responsible for that.
Yes, exactly.
However, the audit sometimes said the board needs to do this. It wasn't consistent, and they may not have really meant it, that it was messy, I'll say. My biggest concern, first of all, is that we comply with the audit, and it is not easy to do. I think this is a demonstration that it's not easy to do. If we really did all this, it would, for one thing, it would be an incredible amount of time. So before we dig into getting the work done, I want to be clearer, and I mean at the board level, that's certainly David too for the staff, but I want to be clear that where they say, oh no, we want that done by the board, or oh, well, we just figured he would inform the board. I would like to know the distinctions. I don't want to assume what ODOT meant and one, risk not actually complying with what they wanted and wasting time.
What we don't know, because none of us were here then, and most of our board wasn't, what we don't know is whether post-audit or audit document in hand, whether the board had an interchange with ODOT reviewing their audit document.
I don't know.
Because if I were on the board at ODOT or whoever did the audit, I would want them coming back to the board saying, here's what we reviewed, here's what we did, here are our recommendations. We don't know whether any of that happened. But that would be a policy that I think is a board policy that with every audit, and we did have the auditor come and go over the last audit, I think.
And they suggest that they say that we need to adopt an audit response policy.
Exactly.
Right.
And there's two sides of that. An audit response policy, you know, we have a policy, there will be an audit response and it will be done timely and blah, blah, blah. But the person who creates that response is not going to be the board. It's going to be the executive director. But it will need to come to the board for approval before the response is provided.
If that's a policy.
If that's a policy. So, so I'm looking at this from the perspective of what do we think our responsibilities are? And I don't think our 7-member board can sit down with all the documents and say, well, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. I think it's our job to pare it down and say, here are the policies we think we need, but board policies. Because, and the operational policies flow from board policies, and they also flow from operations that, you know.
Okay. The way I initially read this, and when my initial response was not, I didn't have the input from the two of you yet, so it was very raw. The feeling I got from this was that the board had needed to, as part of their governance, ensure that the director had operational policies that complied with the needs of public district.
Mm-hmm.
And our job was to make sure that those were in place. And in thinking of that framework, I didn't really see our job as to micromanage what the policies were, but to basically just audit what was produced and make sure and say, okay, can we verify that with somebody that fits with the compliance, and then we move on.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, as a board member, yes, I want to know that we have operational policies in place, but I also need to make sure that those operational policies are being followed. And the only way I know to do that is that reports are being made to the board periodically on their being followed and how they're being followed.
Right.
And so our policy would be that we get a report quarterly, for instance, of how audit deficiencies are being addressed.
Okay.
Or something like that.
In that, you're talking about external audit and how we're coming in line with external audit, or are you talking about self-auditing internally?
Well, I think, and we might want a board policy that directs that an internal audit is done. I don't know. One of the things that I definitely think needs to come out of this is a board policy that we've started on having a standing financial committee, which would be the first thing. I mean, it seems to me that an audit would be a point of discussion at a financial committee, which would be bringing their recommendations to the board for action or that kind of thing. So, so there's operational, there's standing committee, but that's really part of the board. So the first thing in all this is, because we don't, the board during those audits was not fully informed. I'm just gonna.
Sarah, when I asked you a while ago to get us, and the board wanted, all wanted them, the audits, whatever documents there were. Do you know when you or whoever was going through stuff looking for them, if there was anything about conversation between ODOT and the board about, you know, here's the audit, here's the results of our audit, and let's have a conversation about what you're going to do next? Do you know if there were minutes that said that it was delivered at a meeting by the representative, and there was a to-do list that came out afterwards?
I will say that Kelly had those documents, and so she gave them to me. She said, these are the documents that were discussed. This is what the board is looking for.
Okay.
I mean, I believe I should have
Sure,
dated
you weren't
and
here.
checked. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but we don't know what happened when those audits were fresh, when they actually got done. I think the only way for us to know if the board was informed or discussed or how they were informed is to look at minutes. If it's not in minutes of a board meeting, we have to assume the board was not included, because that's the only place where you could include them. And so rather than sit and go through all the board minutes, is there a way for, I'm going to say, throw it at AI with a query, find where the board, where the audit was discussed with the board. And I think you have to go back 3 years in those minutes.
Or is there anybody who was around there who you could say, do you remember having anything? And if they say vaguely,
Jennifer is about the only person.
that when might it have been, so that you can zero in on, we need to look, if it happened in this.
Yeah, Jennifer and Jason would be the only people that would have been around then and had been having interaction at the board level as well. So that might be something that we should ask them about.
That could steer us in the right direction anyway.
Right.
And so there may or may not be something that would be helpful. Frankly, I would be really surprised that it came out with a to-do list of what do we have to do now and who has to do it.
If I was looking at this list and trying to, I would turn this list into a responsibility chart, or I guess I'll call it that. So you've got the list and you say, is this operational or is this board responsibility? And go down the list and check mark.
So wouldn't you first go through to see where it's redundant?
Yeah, I'm making that assumption, yes. Because I think there probably is redundance.
So just for example, and why it might be hard to do that, is on page 29 at the bottom, under the compliance review policy recommendations, under governance and ethics policy, not under finance, it has the audit response policy.
Right.
And who what is that? Personally, I've never seen an audit response policy. Probably easy to Google it and find examples. But that's still relying on documents that were difficult to extract that information from. It's not about this not being done well. It's that the way they were written and that it was 3 years ago. I would like input from ODOT. Things have happened since then.
Yeah.
Do they feel like, oh yeah, well that was what we meant. This piece was done. And it wasn't exactly a policy, but we see it now. I do not want to take on what looks to me like a whole lot of work without getting current guidance from ODOT that we're in we're taking the right approach to that.
Right.
So that we can do, I mean, to me, after I went through this and I wasn't reading every word, I was skipping every third. Now maybe I was just skipping every third sentence. It seemed to me that there were 3 that were big deals. And I know it was the whistleblower policy, the audit response policy, but I looked back through this. I don't know what the other one was. But I would like to know how they see that, what they're looking for so they can check it off.
Do you know how easy it is to adopt a whistleblower policy? There are whistleblower policies are standard. The fact that we don't have a whistleblower policy, if we don't, you can adopt one. I mean, they're standard.
But there are 30 here.
I know, I understand that.
And I don't want to pick out the low-hanging fruit unless the low-hanging fruit comes from ODOT.
So I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I think we need to get ODOT's report on their current assessment of our current deficiencies.
Yeah.
If there is such a thing.
Well, if they're supposed to be measuring that, yeah.
So we need to know where our standing is with ODOT in relation to this review currently, because we have done things have happened that corrected part of the deficiency.
So,
yeah, it's a good question.
What I'm thinking is coming out of this committee, and you tell me if I'm assessing it correctly, is that our recommendation to the board is that we ask ODOT to present to us, to present to the board, their current assessment of our current deficiencies. And it's not an audit, but it's sort of update, where do they think we as a board need to be working on this, what do they think is still outstanding, etc. Now, if we make that recommendation at our April board meeting, I would imagine that it wouldn't be till maybe June or July that would come from ODOT, because A, ODOT has to have time to put it together.
Oh, right, that, yeah.
B, we've got budget things happening, so but I think that it would be appropriate for us to make that recommendation for the board to request this from ODOT. And maybe we need to clarify and add a few words and define this more, but what do you all think about, rather than us digging into this because we don't know.
Yeah.
And also at the same time, I don't know that we have to make this recommendation to the board, but I would definitely want to ask Jennifer and Jason, what happened then? Did the board get a report? And maybe we can find it in the minutes somewhere.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think that what I would not be asking for from ODOT is another written report. I would like, come with the checklist and let's chat about what's needed.
Right.
And that chat includes the executive director, because he's been in regular contact with them about it, and he will have an opinion as well, and that needs to be respected.
Right.
I'm stuck trying to think of the word, but so basically what we would be asking ODOT is, what is the result of the product of the work that we did to correct these actions, to correct these deficiencies?
And where do we stand in our deficiencies?
What they're standing now.
Yeah, right. Update on the status of where we stand on the things they told us we were required to do.
Do we need a motion on this, item 7C?
I need a motion to make the for this committee to make the recommendation. So
I move that we, in regard to item 7C, discuss forensic audit policy recommendations. Recommend to the board that we get an update from ODOT on our forensic review to assess our standing and the results of the product of the work that we have done to correct those actions.
I would say our status, because standing
Status.
Status. I second.
would you take a friendly amendment to that the update be an in-person conversation, as opposed to, because report is a piece of paper to me, and I think, honoring what you're saying, and I agree, I would like it to be an exchange and a discussion, a conversation, as opposed to they send us a list and...
Yeah, I want to be able to say, well, that sounds like 4 different policies. Do you really mean that? Oh, no, I don't, that's what I would expect to happen.
So the friendly amendment then would be that we ask for an in-person
an
exchange.
In-person presentation and exchange.
Update on our status.
So to update our status regarding the outstanding items on the audit report.
That sounds good.
I accept that.
The second is.
Okay. All right. Good. And I think that also in their preparing of it, they will probably also be asking David, do you have this yet? Have you done this yet? Whatever. And we're not saying that David has to do those things before this report. What we're saying is we need to have a clear vision of what is still outstanding.
Okay, we need to call the question then.
Okay, call for the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No, that's unanimous. Okay.
I think that will save us time.
I
in the
agree
long
with
run,
you.
A lot of
I
time.
agree with you, because it's overwhelming.
Yeah, it is.
And also, it provides the whole board with the whole picture,
Yes.
and and to participate in the determination of what's board responsibility and what's staff responsibility, and where is it commingled.
And a prioritization of those as well. Of both of those.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And by doing that, we're opening up public involvement for comment
Oh,
and
yeah.
discussion. So that's important. I think that's important in this stage of, I'll call it reformation.
Definitely. Okay, so the next thing has to do with the ticket bank policy. And what we know is that there's a current ticket bank program. And we have an operational policy in front of us. I think this gives us, there has never been a board policy regarding how does the district give away its services. And I think that's the gist of this. It's not just tickets, it's giving away its services. And how are we responsible in the fiduciary part of it? Because theoretically, whatever we give away is we're giving taxpayer money. And so this gives us the opportunity to develop something that's bigger than the ticket bank. It's really what kind of policy do we want to recommend to the board regarding how, when, why we give away things, and how do we track and report what we give away. Because that has not, I don't think, ever been done in a way that is meaningful.
I liked the policy that was written. The only question I had was at the bottom of page 36, the email address that's written there. It doesn't seem like that's correct.
Oh, L. Hedrick. That's L. Hedrick.
That's Lauren.
Right, that's Lauren.
Oh, okay. I didn't recognize that.
But we're not
that's
reviewing,
fine.
this is not for us to review. This is an operational policy.
Okay.
What we're going is one level higher than that. A ticket bank would be one aspect of giving away. And how do we want giving away services to work?
The district may, from time to time, provide free services depending on these criteria. That kind of approach. What we might do, and that there is some control, and then there is some tracking mechanism. What other, thinking big, not detail.
Mm-hmm.
What big things do we need? We should have a why in there.
Mm-hmm.
What we may from time to time provide services, and how we're going to track it. Not the detail of how we're going to track it, but that we're going to track it so that those numbers can be reported.
I also think that we need to very visibly make a statement that we are not, that anything we, I'm going to say give away, although I don't like that phrase, but I can't think of another one, that anything that we give away is not discriminatory in nature, that we aren't giving it to one segment of the population as opposed to any other segment. Let me share with you what we're going through in Budget Committee in Seaside, and that is one of the things we're looking at, because all of the different entities make grants, do granting kind of thing. And one of the things we're looking at is the purpose of the grants, and looking at the statement that this is something that the city should or could do for the betterment of the city, but doesn't have the ability to do on their own. So we're granting to an agency that does this to do it in our behalf or in our stead. So that might be one of the things that you have in the back of your mind as you're thinking about the district providing things at no cost to people.
In other words, we're not, if we were following that model from Seaside, we would not be giving things to individuals, we would be giving things to organizations whose purpose serves our responsibility.
Right.
Or our purpose.
Yes. So, and I don't think that the district, my knowledge from the past, is not that the district has given away free bus tickets to individual people. But I do know there was one board meeting that I attended where one of the board members said, I want some more free tickets for my nonprofit community service agency to give away to people. And we need to address that. You know, how does that feed? If you've got a community service agency and you're giving to only their members, that to me is discriminatory. So, but again, we have to also look at what is the public purpose behind this use of taxpayer-funded services.
Another example, I think, asking it to see whether or not it gets caught in this net, is we do 1 or 2 times a year of free rides, and there's an intention, especially to serve folks, but it's also a public relations intention. So if we want to include that, we need to be sure that we're writing the language so that that's wrapped in. When are we not?
That's good.
We're making a change in how people access services.
Right.
Temporary for a particular reason, to particular organizations where, say this is, the word discriminatory, we generally use, I think, to mean unlawful discrimination. But sometimes we do want to target particular groups because they are or have been underserved. Make a little side statement that that's gotten more complicated in the last year, but I happen to still believe that's important as a public agency, that we are looking for those most in need of our services,
right,
and thinking about how we can provide them in a way that makes those needed services accessible. And I think what we're talking about here is exceptions to that regular way we do this. We get grants for particular kinds of services because they might target folks who, say, live in a particular part of the district. We don't extend services every place. So, we're making some decisions about that. But it seems to me it's more about exceptional things we do. Exceptional, that's not a word. Exceptions to our regular operations and fees for riders, clients.
Would that then include the Ridership Appreciation Day?
Yeah,
That's
I think
what I meant.
that's what she was meaning.
Okay.
So I think that definitely should be addressed in a policy that, maybe it's how many ridership appreciation days we have, a policy that we track the usage on those. Because the other thing that we want to make sure we don't forget is that providing a service at no cost should be bringing us business. Our effectiveness and our funding and some of the grants are truly based on ridership. And if we are giving it away but not counting, we are it's like shooting ourselves in the foot. Because we need to be able to use that count in our ridership.
And we can't double count, but we have to count.
Exactly.
If what we have to provide to the state or whoever is accurate data about ridership, then we need to capture that.
So maybe a rough policy statement amongst all the policy statements would be that the district will have in place a mechanism for determining the number of riders, gained through any kind of free service. I mean, that's a policy we can set at the board, then operations has to do it.
And this isn't against providing any assistance to folks.
No, it isn't.
Or an attempt to change like Rider Appreciation Day.
No.
It's to make sure that we're consistent and fair and that we're capturing the information we need to keep getting more dollars to continue services.
Exactly. And consistent and fair, both to, so I'm going to say social service agencies as well as to us, because I know that many of the Department of Health, many of the social service agencies are currently buying tickets from us and giving them away. Now, if they have a grant for $100, I'm going to say $3,000 to buy tickets, I want them to be able to spend that grant and get the credit for spending the grant, but I don't want to be giving something for free when they got a grant for this specific purpose. Do you understand? And that's where maybe in an application it needs to ask, what kind of grants have you received to provide bus service? Because some of them are getting grants for that.
Well, if they're purchasing tickets to give away with their grant money, that's paying a fare.
Yes.
Right.
I don't want to replace that, though, with us just giving them tickets at no cost.
Right.
So maybe something like that, if we know they have a grant, we say we give you 2 tickets for the cost of 1 or something like that. I don't know.
I'm not sure how all that might work.
I don't know, but again, it's it's basically making sure everybody is getting the credit and the taxpayer knows how their tax dollars are being spent.
So the main focus is that you definitely want to track how many people are utilizing some form of free ticket, free ride, whether it's through a ticket bank ride or Rider Appreciation Day or whatever.
And there's another possible policy there, and that is the difference between a monthly pass and a day pass. Do we want a policy that says we'll underwrite the cost of day passes but not monthly passes?
Well, and one thing there that's important is that we don't, that we're sure from operations that it's doable and worth doing.
Exactly.
We don't, something that is onerous to manage.
You're right.
And provides little benefit, we don't want to do that. That looks bad in the paper. But to the media coordinator, let's say, when we do good work we're really happy to see that out there on social media, paper, a little
Did you have
story in
something
the
to do
local
with the
news.
story today?
No.
Okay.
What was the story today?
I sent it out to you guys. Did I send it out to you?
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to read it.
On the front page of the Daily A is a thing about SETD and continuing bus service in light of the rising cost of gasoline, diesel.
Oh, good.
For the most part, it was a good article, and this is a good reporter. They've got this gal is a good reporter.
What was the byline on
It's Abigail.
Yeah.
And Kimber.
Okay.
Jablon, was it
Yeah.
Jablon? It was Jablon, yeah. So, anyway, so I don't think we're going to hammer out policies today, but I think we need to think about the things that go into it. And you're right. We don't design the system, but we, I mean, what is it that the board, how is the board going to make sure that we are transparent and responsible to the taxpayer in the use of the funds that we give away?
Is there any problem with the ticket bank application
Well,
as far as that we give tickets to agencies that apply?
I'll tell you what I would prefer seeing is rather than having, I would rather see this be more like the cities and the county does every year. And if you have a program where you grant tickets or you grant money or you grant services, that you have that application for the grant come to the agency and they tell you what they want for the whole year. So you can figure it into it becomes a budgetary item. Rather than the different social service agencies, well, I'm gonna, this month I'm gonna ask you for this, and next month I'm gonna ask you for this, and the following month I'm gonna ask you for this. And at what point do we say no, because we don't know if, Z has asked us and they keep asking us, but what about X and Y? And they suddenly come to us and we say, well, no, because Z got it all. Again, to me, that's part of the discriminatory. And by having one time a year that anybody can apply, and we figure it into what is the ramification to our budget, then, I mean, it levels the playing field for the requesters. And it makes us more knowledgeable about what we are, in fact, giving away.
Okay, so as part of the board policy then, you would like to see this, call them grants, the grants of these free passes, whatever you want to call them, be done on an annual basis, and
As part of the budget.
the board holds the discretion on who we can grant those passes to. Okay, does
And-
that avoid any discrimination?
It does, because the other thing that you can do is if you give everybody the opportunity to apply for the grants at the same time, and you see that this agency asked for 1,000 tickets and this agency asked for 500 and da-da-da. You can total up all the numbers you got, and then you can say, we can afford to do this, and so we're going to give you all a lesser amount. You may not get everything you asked for, but you're going to get some. But it gives the opportunity to, and then they can manage for the whole year how they want to give away their free tickets.
Okay, My question is, excuse me, and it might be just way too outer space thinking of this, but if the board has discretion on who we grant these things to, and we have it open to everyone, then can John Doe come and say, hey, I want a free number of tickets this year?
No, because you set, in your program, you set who can get it. Agencies, not John Doe's.
Okay.
Right.
That's where I was.
And it's the same way that the cities work.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can't just.
But there's no preset discrimination as to what agencies can, and that's how we avoid that.
Right.
Okay.
So in Corvallis, we set up a system over a couple of years because we started it one way and then we started it. Very small, $5,000 in grants. The first set were intended to be agent or groups that served a local area, so mostly neighborhood associations.
Yes.
And defined that, but it was a little broader than neighborhood associations. And there was a maximum they could apply for, and they were all received at one time. We had a city committee of community members that the diversity and blah committee, and they reviewed those per the criteria and awarded them. And once the money was gone, some people applied, didn't get anything. Homeowners association that got regular HOA fees versus they didn't get anything because they had a source of income, versus a neighborhood association that wanted to rent some tools so that their members could cut back the ivy in a place to open a path. They got their $500, whatever. Then we expanded it a couple of years later. So we had some committees in the community that served a population across the community. We wanted the neighborhood associations because that was a way to connect with neighborhood associations, connection and communication between the city and the neighborhood association. And so there were organizations that were not necessarily nonprofits, they didn't necessarily have that status, but they were groups and there were some criteria and they could apply with the same way, but they served, they'd probably all be illegal now, but groups that we all would have said, oh yeah, immigrant nursing mothers who wanted some equipment to, they could pump milk. So those kinds of things happened. Really small. There was a designated group that was taking care of it. It was not the council, wasn't looking at those things. They were too small. The things were too small for the council to be doing that. There are ways you do it, but you have to think through some of that, and the staff has to really think it through because it can't be more trouble than it's worth.
And that's why if you're only doing it, if you do it once a year and you're opening it up, that makes the application side of it the least amount of work, if you will, because you're not getting these requests, every month, etc. I mean, if you don't do it like that, I mean, if we're doing it like this, there's nothing on here, I think, that says agencies can only apply twice a year, or the maximum number of tickets you can apply for is blank. This is a free-for-all almost.
Yeah.
If you're in the know.
And if you're in the know. If you're in the know.
And that has, in the history of the district that I've been aware of since 2008, been a public perception that if you are connected, you can get free tickets.
Right.
And we want to avoid that.
Right.
We want to correct that, is what we want. Yeah.
Exactly.
So I do like that idea. So that would work like you were talking about in Seaside when they have the budget committee meeting in June or whenever that is, May. everybody brings their grant proposals.
Yeah, and we're not having them present in person any longer.
Right.
They're filling out something, and they have to prove to us, they have to be a 501c3. They have to provide services to the citizens of Seaside. I mean, so there's parameters, and that's something that can be built. In the meantime, this is going to continue, but it's not a fair process. I don't see it as fair. And I can tell you my previous experience with people who are no longer working at the district really was not fair, because I went to bat for a few agencies and I was consistently ignored.
Okay, so what do we need to do action-wise?
I think we need to start with a board policy regarding providing free services. Or service at no cost.
I think in your report to the board, saying that's our intent, and we want them to say, yes, go ahead and draft something. Again, I don't want us to spend a lot of time drafting something that the board may say, yeah, that is totally different than what we want. So we can hear from them, yeah, this is good, we like this idea, yeah. And then it's worth our time to get something drafted and bring it to the board. And it's also more transparent because we're saying, this is the approach we're thinking about taking.
Right. And in that policy, I mean, we know that a free ridership day, that's providing free services. Mm-hmm. And that in the policy is something that the board authorizes the district to do 2 or 3, or however the board decides number of free ridership days. But also in that policy is the maintaining of records. Okay.
Well, that seems like worthwhile work.
Yeah, I really want to track the data on who's on what our ridership is for those times.
So, and I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the agreement that we're looking at with the college and possibly Ton Point, and that agreement provides services for free. It has no limit on the amount that it provides for free, but could you say it's discriminatory because it's only for those populations? But then you're saying, what do we get in return for it? And I can tell you that the way it used to work was that the college paid a capitated amount to the district, and I put the agreement together for Ton Point. Ton Point paid $5 per quarter per student to the district. It was very good for the district, and it was very good for Ton Point because our students, we had 500 and some students, and they got to ride for free. But the district was all, it increased ridership, and it was a cash flow. It was a revenue source. It was very good.
So basically a fare for unlimited access?
That's pretty much what it
Okay.
was. Right.
And we're not doing that now?
That stopped after I left Ton Point, which was too bad. And part of it stopped.
Okay.
So I think that the policy can include a section that talks about contracts where there is an exchange of benefits. It doesn't necessarily have to be a fee. There are other ways to exchange.
I like exchange of benefits. That's good.
It is transactional, yeah.
Yeah. And in some cases, the other thing that has happened in the past is that it doesn't happen so much here, but I know one company did it where the company purchased, actually Ton Point was doing this for its staff. They would purchase the tickets at a reduced fare and sell them at Ton Point to staff at the reduced fare. But again, the benefit was increased ridership for.
Well, if you're tracking and if you're clear about all the details, you can have a variety of approaches.
Right.
But you're also, by putting it in policy, you are saying to the community, this is the basis of how we do this.
And right now, and this should be in policy, right now, operationally, if you are a kid under the age of 18, you get to ride for free. Now, do you have to prove your age when you get on the bus? I don't know. I think you're supposed to provide your school ID. I think you're supposed to. But how are those getting counted?
And there might be areas where we think that tracking is done differently or is less important, or a mother carrying a baby, a father carrying a baby. Do we?
Right.
I don't know, and that gets really detailed. And I would rather have staff say this would be really hard. We think we should do it this way. Right. And go, okay, fine.
Yeah.
I think that's an operational thing. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, I would like to see that. I would like to see those numbers. But
it would be lovely to see.
Is that achievable
Right.
under our current system is the question.
Yeah.
Because we got some kickback on that from the director.
Right. Well, and some of that is thinking outside the box. Count how many people you picked up at that you drop off at the college. That tells you right there. So anyway, but that's not for us to figure out. Okay, so that's the ticket. The ledge advocacy call. Oh, we're at 1 o'clock. I'm sorry. Well, biting off more than we can chew.
I think we got a lot
But
done.
we got a lot done. Absolutely. Are there any final comments from any committee members?
What I wanted to say was, I got in a little earlier, that I think it's important when we're looking at policy work that we're really conscious of the time it takes, time for staff, time for us. That says how many we can complete, how much work we complete in a year, if we're paying attention to that. And that we need to make sure as we're starting to develop things, that we are getting information early about operations, from ODOT, things that inform us so that we can end up with a policy that's effective rather than just sort of picking something out of the air. I'm not suggesting that we have, but we're not drafting things in isolation.
Correct.
So that's all.
And I would like to affirm that. I agree with Commissioner York. I also appreciate the work that was done in our last meeting where I could not attend, but I did watch that meeting online. And I think that our group here is working very effectively and quickly in something that's a massive undertaking. And like Penny said, if we can focus on doing the time thing and keeping it manageable, that's great. I also appreciate that. I really like the style of the formatting of what the comparisons in the documents with the AI. With the SDAO style was very good, clear, bolted, simple. I would like to steer towards that. Because we're not being paid by the word anymore. That's an old thing. So if we can keep it as simple as possible, that's great.
Okay.
I think that helps not open up possibilities, because I'm more protocol oriented than I am policy oriented because of my career. So, and I think that a lot of these things that we could we're writing policies, but we can shift our thinking into them being more protocol oriented.
Okay. And I will summarize. When is our next meeting?
It's just looked, I think it's the 14th, or I think it's the 14th.
May 14th. Okay, so summarize that I, at the board meeting, will be presenting our recommendations to accept policy B312, policy B804, and then I will talk about our discussion regarding the ticket bank, and will provide also a recommendation move for the board to get a report, an in-person report from ODOT, and I'll have the draft of the minutes by then, so I'll be able to wordsmith all that. Did I miss anything on the outcomes today? Okay, thank you. You just do great. I mean, this helps me so much, everything that you're doing here and keeping us going and in order and organized. You're a rock star, Sarah.
I told you May 14th. I thought you were, that's this committee meeting?
Yes, that's
Is that
what I
what
was
you were
thinking.
asking? Okay.
Yes. Because I left my phone in my car, and so I don't have it. So you probably want to take copies of that, and I have to go sign checks. Okay, so our meeting is adjourned.
Good job. Thank you.
Good deal.